Everyone loves to listen to a good book, and there are so many wonderful ones to choose, so we decided to bring you this podcast of Stories Come to Life. Each episode features a story from either classic or modern literature, especially chosen to be interesting and exciting to hear. So sit back, relax, and listen to this story come to life. Welcome to Stories Come to Life. This is episode 35, and I am your host, Kathryn Lopez Luker. In this poetic interlude, listen to the pretty patterns rhymes make. The rhythm of poetry is delightful. But just as not all poetry has to rhyme, neither does it always bring delight. Sometimes it has a different message of hope or grief or even amusement, such as when a kitten discovers snow. Now sit back, relax, and listen to these poems come to life. Verse for a Certain Dog by Dorothy Parker. Such glorious faith as fills your limpid eyes, dear little friend of mine I never knew. All innocent are you, and yet all wise. For heaven's sake, stop worrying that shoe. You look about, and all you see is fair. This mighty globe was made for you alone. Of all the thunderous ages, you're the heir. Get off the pillow with that dirty bone. A skeptic world you face with steady gaze. High in young pride, you hold your noble head. Gaily you meet the rushing of roaring days. Must you eat puppy biscuit on the bed? Lance-like, your courage, gleaming swift and strong. Yours the white rapture of a winged soul. Yours is a spirit like a Mayday song. God help you if you break the goldfish bowl. Whatever is good, your gracious creed. You wear your joy of living like a crown. Love lights your simplest act, your every deed. Drop it, I tell you, put that kitten down. You are God's kindliest gift of all, a friend. Your shining loyalty unflecked by doubt. You ask but leave to follow to the end. Couldn't you wait until I took you out? Growl Tiger's Last Stand by T.S. Eliot. Growl Tiger was a bravo cat who lived upon a barge. In fact, he was the roughest cat that ever roamed at large. From Gravesend up to Oxford, he pursued his evil aims, rejoicing in his title of the Terror of the Thames. His manners and appearance did not calculate to please. His coat was torn and seedy. He was baggy at the knees. One ear was somewhat missing, no need to tell you why, and he scowled upon a hostile world from one forbidding eye. The cottagers of Rotherhithe knew something of his fame. At Hammersmith and Putney, people shuddered at his name. They would fortify the hen-house, lock up the silly goose, when the rumor ran along the shore, Growl Tiger's on the loose. Woe to the weak canary that fluttered from its cage. Woe to the pampered Pekingese that faced Growl Tiger's rage. Woe to the bristly bandicoot that lurks on foreign ships. And woe to any cat with whom Growl Tiger came to grips. But most to cats of foreign race his hatred had been vowed. To cats of foreign name and race no quarter was allowed. The Persian and the Siamese regarded him with fear, because it was a Siamese that had mauled his missing ear. Now, on a peaceful summer night, all nature seemed at play. The tender moon was shining bright. The barge at Molesley lay. All in the balmy moonlight it lay rocking on the tide, and Growl Tiger was disposed to show his sentimental side. His bucko mate Grumbuskin long since had disappeared, for to the bell at Hampton he had gone to wet his beard, and his bosun Tumble Brutus, he too had stolen away. In the yard behind the lion He was prowling for his prey. In the forepeak of the vessel, Growl Tiger sat alone, concentrating his attention on the lady, Griddlebone. And his raffish crew were sleeping in their barrels and their bunks, as the Siamese came creeping in their sampans and their junks. Growl Tiger had no eye or ear for aught but Griddlebone, and the lady seemed enraptured by his manly baritone. Disposed to relaxation, and awaiting no surprise, but the moonlight shone reflected from 1,000 bright blue eyes, and closer still and closer the sampan circled round, and yet from all the enemy there was not heard a sound. The lovers sang their last duet, in danger of their lives, for the foe was armed with toasting forks and cruel carving knives. Then Gilbert gave the signal to his fierce Mongolian horde. With a frightful burst of fireworks, the Chinks they swarmed aboard, abandoning their sampans and their pullaways and junks. They battened down the hatches on the crew within their bunks. Then Griddlebone, she gave a screech, for she was badly scared. I'm sorry to admit it, but she quickly disappeared. She probably escaped with ease. I'm sure she was not drowned. But a serried ring of flashing steel Growl Tiger did surround. The ruthless foe pressed forward in stubborn rank on rank. Growl Tiger, to his vast surprise, was forced to walk the plank. He, who 100 victims had driven to that drop, at the end of all his crimes was forced to go kerflip, kerflop. Oh, there was joy in Wapping when the news flew through the land. At Maidenhead and Henley there was dancing on the Strand. Rats were roasted whole at Brentford and at Victoria Dock, and a day of celebration was commanded in Bangkok. There Was a Naughty Boy by John Keats. There was a naughty boy was he. He would not stop at home. He could not quiet be. He took in his knapsack a book full of vowels and a shirt with some towels, a slight cap for nightcap, a hairbrush, comb ditto, new stockings, for old ones would split-o. This knapsack, tight at his back, he riveted close, and followed his nose to the north, and followed his nose to the north. There was a naughty boy, and a naughty boy was he. He ran away to Scotland, the people for to see. There he found that the ground was as hard, that a yard was as long, that a song was as merry, that a cherry was as red, that lead was as weighty, that 80 was as 80, that a door was as wooden as in England. So he stood in his shoes and he wondered. He wondered. He stood in his shoes and he wondered. George, who played with a dangerous toy and suffered a catastrophe of considerable dimensions, by Hilaire Belloc. When George's grandmamma was told that George had been as good as gold, she promised in the afternoon to buy him an immense balloon. And so she did. But when it came, it got into the candle flame, and being of a dangerous sort, exploded with a loud report. The lights went out, the windows broke, the room was filled with reeking smoke, and in the darkness, shrieks and yells were mingled with electric bells, and falling masonry, and groans and crunching as of broken bones, and dreadful shrieks when, worst of all, the house itself began to fall. It tottered, shuddering to and fro, then crashed into the street below, which happened to be in Savile Row. When help arrived, among the dead were Cousin Mary, little Fred, the footman, both of them, the groom, the man that cleaned the billiard-room, the chaplain, and the still-room maid, and I am dreadfully afraid that Monsieur Champignon, the chef, will now be permanently deaf, and both his aides are much the same, while George, who was in part to blame, received, you will regret to hear, a nasty lump behind his ear. The moral is that little boys, should not be given dangerous toys. O Captain, my Captain, by Walt Whitman. O Captain, my Captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship has weathered every rack. The prize we sought is won. The port is near, the bells I hear, the people all exulting. While follow eyes the steady keel, the vessel grim and daring. But oh, heart, 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 oh, the bleeding drops of red, where on the deck my Captain lies, fallen, cold and dead. O Captain, my Captain, rise up and hear the bells. Rise up, for you the flag is flung. For you the bugle trills. For you bouquets and ribboned wreaths. For you the shores a-crowding. For you they call, the swaying mass, their eager faces turning. Here, Captain, dear father, the arm beneath your head. It is some dream that on the deck you've fallen cold and dead. My Captain does not answer. His lips are pale and still. My father does not feel my arm. He has no pulse nor will. The ship is anchored safe and sound, its voyage closed and done. From fearful trip the victor ship comes in with object won. Exult, O shores, and ring, O bells! But I with mournful tread walk the deck my Captain lies, fallen, cold and dead. A Fence by Carl Sandburg. Now the stone house on the lakefront is finished, and the workmen are beginning the fence. The palings are made of iron bars with steel points that can stab the life out of any man that falls on them. As a fence, it is a masterpiece, and will shut off the rabble, and all vagabonds, and hungry men, and all wandering children looking for a place to play. Passing through the bars and over the steel points will go nothing except death, and the rain, and tomorrow. Mending Wall by Robert Frost. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen groundswell under it, and spills the upper boulders in the sun, and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair where they have left not one stone on a stone. But they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. The gaps I mean, no one has seen them made or heard them made, but at spring mending time we find them there. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go, to each the boulders that have fallen to each. And some are loaves, and some so nearly balls we have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game. One on a side, it comes to little more. There where it is, we do not need the wall. He is all pine, and I am apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his pines, I tell him. He only says, "Good fences make good neighbors." Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it where there are cows? But here there are no cows. Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, and to whom I was like to give offense. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. I could say elves to him, but it's not elves exactly, and I'd rather he said it for himself. I see him there, bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top in each hand, like an old stone savage armed. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me, not of woods only in the shade of trees. He will not go behind his father's saying, and he likes having thought of it so well. He says again, "Good fences make good neighbors." Paul Revere's Ride by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. On the 18th of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. He said to his friend, "If the British march by land or sea from the town tonight, hang a lantern aloft in the belfry arch of the North Church tower as a signal light. One if by land and two if by sea, and I on the opposite shore will be, ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm, for the country folk to be up and to arm." Then he said good night, and with muffled oar silently rowed to the Charleston shore, just as the moon rose over the bay, where swinging wide at her moorings lay the Somerset, British man-o'-war, a phantom ship, with each mast and spar across the moon like a prison bar, and a huge black hulk that was magnified by its own reflection in the tide. Meanwhile, his friend, through alley and street, wanders and watches with eager ears, till in the silence around him he hears the muster of men at the barrack door, and the measured tread of the grenadiers marching down to their boats on the shore. Then he climbed to the tower of the old North Church by the wooden stairs with stealthy tread, to the belfry chamber overhead, and startled the pigeons from their perch on the sombre rafters that round him made masses and moving shapes of shade. By the trembling ladder, steep and tall, to the highest window in the wall, where he paused to listen and look down a moment on the roofs of the town, and the moonlight flowing over all. Beneath the churchyard lay the dead, in their night encampment on the hill, wrapped in silence so deep and still that he could hear, like a sentinel's tread, the watchful night wind, as it went creeping along from tent to tent, and seeming to whisper, "All is well." A moment only he feels the spell of the place and the hour and the secret dread of the lonely belfry and the dead. For suddenly all his thoughts are bent on a shadowy something far away, where the river widens to meet the bay, a line of black that bends and floats on the rising tide, like a bridge of boats. Meanwhile, impatient to mount and ride, booted and spurred with a heavy stride, on the opposite shore walked Paul Revere. Now he patted his horse's side, now gazed at the landscape far and near, then impetuous stamped the earth, and turned and tightened his saddle girth. But mostly he watched with eager search the belfry tower of the old North Church, as it rose above the graves on the hill, lonely and spectral and sombre and still. And lo, as he looks, on the belfry's height, a glimmer, and then a gleam of light. He springs to the saddle, the bridle he turns, but lingers and gazes, till full on his sight a second lamp in the belfry burns. A hurry of hoofs in a village street, a shape in the moonlight, a bulk in the dark, and beneath, from the pebbles, in passing, a spark struck out by a steed flying fearless and fleet. That was all. And yet, through the gloom and the night, the fate of a nation was riding that night, and the spark struck out by that steed in his flight kindled the land into flame with its heat. He has left the village and mounted the steep, and beneath him, tranquil and broad and deep, is the mystic meeting the ocean tides, and under the alders that skirt its edge, now soft on the sand, now loud on the ledge, is heard the tramp of his steed as he rides. It was 12 by the village clock when he crossed the bridge into Medford town. He heard the crowing of the cock and the barking of the farmer's dog, and felt the damp of river fog that rises after the sun goes down. It was 1 by the village clock when he galloped into Lexington. He saw the gilded weathercock swim in the moonlight as he passed, and the meeting-house windows, blank and bare, gaze at him with a spectral glare, as if they already stood aghast at the bloody work they would look upon. It was 2 by the village clock when he came to the bridge in Concord town. He heard the bleating of the flock and the twitter of birds among the trees, and felt the breath of the morning breeze blowing over the meadows brown. And one was safe and asleep in his bed, who at the bridge would be first to fall, who that day would be lying dead, pierced by a British musket ball. You know the rest. In the books you have read how the British regulars fired and fled, how the farmers gave them ball for ball from behind each fence and farmyard wall, chasing the redcoats down the lane, then crossing the fields to emerge again under the trees at the turn of the road, and only pausing to fire and load. So through the night rode Paul Revere, and so through the night went his cry of alarm to every Middlesex village and farm, a cry of defiance and not of fear, a voice in the darkness, a knock at the door, and a word that shall echo for evermore. For borne on the night wind of the past, through all our history to the last, in the hour of darkness and peril and need, the people will awaken and listen to hear the hurrying hoofbeats of that steed, and the midnight message of Paul Revere. The Bells by Edgar Allan Poe. Hear the sledges with the bells, silver bells. What a world of merriment their melody foretells. How they tinkle, tinkle, tinkle in the icy air of night, while the stars that oversprinkle all the heavens seem to twinkle with a crystal and delight, keeping time, 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 in a sort of runic rhyme, to the tintinnabulation that so musically wells from the bells, 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 from the jingling and the tinkling of the bells. Hear the mellow wedding bells, golden bells. What a world of happiness their harmony foretells. Through the balmy air of night, how they ring out their delight, from the molten golden notes and all in tune. What a liquid ditty floats to the turtle-dove that listens, while she gloats on the moon. Oh, from out the sounding cells, what a gush of euphony voluminously wells, how it swells, how it dwells, on the future how it tells, of the rapture that impels, to the swinging and the ringing of the bells, 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 of the bells, 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 to the rhyming and the chiming of the bells. Hear the loud alarum bells, brazen bells. What a tale of terror now their turbulency tells. In the startled ear of night, how they scream out their affright. Too much horrified to speak, they can only shriek, shriek, out of tune. In a clamorous appealing to the mercy of the fire, in a mad expostulation with the deaf and frantic fire, leaping higher, 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 with a desperate desire and a resolute endeavor, now to sit or never by the side of the pale-faced moon. Oh, the bells, 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 what a tale their terror tells of despair. How they clang and clash and roar, what a horror they outpour on the bosom of the palpitating air. Yet the ear it fully knows by the twanging and the clanging, how the danger ebbs and flows. Yet the ear distinctly tells, in the jangling and the wrangling, how the danger sinks and swells by the sinking or the swelling in the anger of the bells, of the bells, of the bells, 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 in the clamor and the clangor of the bells. Hear the tolling of the bells, iron bells. What a world of solemn thought their monody compels. In the silence of the night, how we shiver with affright at the melancholy menace of their tone. For every sound that floats from the rest within their throats is a groan. And the people, the people, they that dwell up in the steeple all alone, and who tolling, tolling, tolling in that muffled monotone, feel a glory in so rolling on the human heart a stone. They are neither man nor woman, they are neither brute nor human, they are ghouls. And their king it is who tolls, and he rolls, 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 rolls a paean from the bells, and his merry bosom swells with the paean of the bells, and he dances and he yells, keeping time, time, time in a sort of runic rhyme to the paean of the bells, keeping time, time, time in a sort of runic rhyme to the throbbing of the bells, 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 to the sobbing of the bells, keeping time, 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 as he knells, knells, knells in a happy runic rhyme to the rolling of the bells, 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 to the tolling of the bells, 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 to the moaning and the groaning of the bells. White Butterflies by Algernon Charles Swinburne. Fly, white butterflies, out to sea, frail pale wings for the wind to try, small white wings that we scarce can see. Fly! Some fly light as a laugh of glee, some fly soft as a long low sigh, all to the haven where each would be. Fly! There is one that has a head without an eye, by Christina Rossetti. There is one that has a head without an eye, and there's one that has an eye without a head. You may find the answer if you try when all is said. Half the answer hangs upon a thread. The Snake by Emily Dickinson. A narrow fellow in the grass occasionally rides. You may have met him, did you not? His notice sudden is. The grass divides as with a comb. A spotted shaft is seen, and then it closes at your feet and opens further on. He likes a boggy acre, a floor too cool for corn. Yet when a child and barefoot, I more than once at morn have passed, I thought, a whiplash, unbraiding in the sun. When stooping to secure it, it wrinkled and was gone. Several of nature's people I know, and they know me. I feel for them a transport of cordiality, but never met this fellow, attended or alone, without a tighter breathing and zero at the bone. Who has seen the wind? By Christina Rossetti. Who has seen the wind? Neither I nor you. But when the leaves hang trembling, the wind is passing through. Who has seen the wind? Neither you nor I. But when the trees bow down their heads, the wind is passing by. There is a garden in her face, by Thomas Campion. There is a garden in her face where roses and white lilies grow. A heavenly paradise is that place, where all pleasant fruits do flow. There cherries grow which none may buy, till cherry ripe themselves do cry. Those cherries fairly do enclose of orient pearl a double row, which, when her lovely laughter shows, they look like rosebuds filled with snow. Yet them no peer nor prince can buy, till cherry ripe themselves do cry. Her eyes like angels watch them still, her brows like bended bows do stand, threatening with piercing frowns to kill all that attempt with eye or hand those sacred cherries to come nigh, till cherry ripe themselves do cry. One Perfect Rose by Dorothy Parker. A single flower he sent me since we met, all tenderly his messenger he chose, deep-hearted, pure with scented dew still wet, one perfect rose. I knew the language of the floweret. My fragile leaves, it said, his heart enclose. Love long has taken for his amulet one perfect rose. Why is it no one ever sent me yet one perfect limousine, do you suppose? Ah, no. It's always just my luck to get one perfect rose. Ariel's Dirge by William Shakespeare. Full fathom 5 thy father lies, of his bones are coral made. Those are pearls that were his eyes, nothing of him that doth fade, but doth suffer a sea change into something rich and strange. Sea nymphs hourly ring his knell. Ding dong, hark, now I hear them. Ding dong bell. On His Books by Hilaire Belloc. When I am dead, I hope it may be said, his sins were scarlet, but his books were red. Cat and the Weather by May Swenson. Cat takes a look at the weather. Snow. Puts a paw on the sill. His perch is piled, is a pillow. Shape of his pad appears. Will it dig? No. Not like sand. Like his fur almost. But licked, not liked. Too cold. Insects are flying, fainting down. He'll try to bat one against the pane. They have no body and no buzz. And now his feet are wet. It's a puzzle. Shakes each leg, then shakes his skin to get the white flies off. Looks for his tail. Tells it to come on in by the radiator. World's turned queer. Somehow. All white. No smell. Well, here inside. It's still familiar. He'll go to sleep until it puts itself right. This is your host, Kathryn Lopez Luker. Thank you for joining us for this poetic interlude of Stories Come to Life. Be sure to join us next time when we begin another book. You can find a link to our podcast on the Marshall Public Library webpage, www.marshallpl.org. I'll talk to you again soon.